needs a paradigm shift. We need a paradigm shift. I can't talk about it in the environment or in the political field or in the economic field where we all see it. But I can talk about it here in medicine where I've spent my life researching. And I'm uniquely qualified in a way because at the age of 15, I developed a sort of an X-ray vision. So, would you like me to explain how that happened? So I'll talk about a little bit about my background, about my 30 years of research, and then my conclusions and what I developed as insights. Hopefully I'll have time for that. So I was kind of a math genius and a straight A student as a kid, bored out of my mind. And so I heard there was something called high school. So I thought, okay, I'm in a loving family and I'll get my education when I'm older. And then I entered high school and walked around for 2 weeks in kind of a very disappointed stupor that it was going to be kind of the same thing. And I stayed in high school because it was easy for me, and I took on my own education at 14. And I decided instead to study metaphysics and yoga and meditation and massage. And apparently at that age, that's what our brain wants. There's some research on that I can share with you. And then at age 15, as I was practicing all this massage, I started to see inside people's bodies. And I realized that we lived in a field of information. I didn't know why what I was seeing was different than anyone else, maybe because I had taken on my own education. But I knew the problem wasn't me. And then I had to get through, high school while I would continue. And then when I got out, I ran from academia as fast as I could to try to find some real teachers who could teach me really about the things that I was seeing. Well, turns out, after all these years, that physicists are actually saying what I and healers and seers have been saying for millennia. Now, I really want you to get this. This is what the people that we go to define reality to us, this is what they're saying. What you see with your 5 senses that you think is 100% accurate is actually 2 to 5% of reality. I'm not making that up. That's the way I see things. But now the physicists are saying that. So, here's where the paradigm shift stuff comes in. So if all of our systems are run by 2% of intelligence, what do we get? We get what we got. This nutty, crazy world. I think everyone in here is kind of up to the 5% level because we're kind of looking beyond and outside the box. But for anyone who's done the cancer merry-go-round, you're like, you got to look outside the box. So, okay, what was I going to do with all this amazing information and amazing teachers that I was studying with? I became a healer. What else could I do? right? And that's what I've done my entire life. Well, in 1989, this came in handy because my father was diagnosed in the last stages of prostate cancer. It had already gone to 16 locations in his bones. His doctor gave him 2 years to live and told him to go home and die. Well, I'm a great researcher, so I got on it. And we went to Germany, and we went to Mexico, and we went to this clinic, and we went to that clinic, and we tried that protocol, and we went east, and we went west. Anyone know this story? Well, none of it worked. And my father started dying, dropped down to 78 pounds. He was in excruciating pain and couldn't eat. I love my father. So I had students in New York. One of the things that I learned from a wonderful healer and metaphysician was something called regenesis. It's a hands-on healing art that regenerates cell tissue. And I was traipsing around the country teaching people how to do this. Luckily, I had students in New York where my father lived. In order to help my father transit, with as least pain as possible, 5 or 6 of my students came over, and we would lay hands on my father with this actually very scientific process. And we did that for 4 or 5 months. Now, I'm also an expert in nutrition, so I knew exactly what to give him. He was a smart patient. He did whatever I said. That was good. I also know how to detox somebody without killing them. And lo and behold, after about 4 or 5 months of this, my father's almost all gray hair turned almost all black. And he lived pain-free and spry for another 8 years. Now, at the time, I had seen many, 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 many healings, and I was just ecstatic, to have that the doctors are wrong. But 2 things stuck in my mind. And one was, how did I know more than the doctors? How is that possible? How could they have it so wrong? Remember the 2%? They're coming from a paradigm that doesn't work. And the other question I had was, because he eventually did succumb to the disease, what did I miss? I missed something. What did I miss? Well, first of all, what did I do? Well, all the clinics are doing detoxification, and they're doing, the herbs, and they're doing the homeopathics, and they're doing the nutrition, and we did all that. What did I do different? I added vibrational medicine. I raised his vibratory rate. I raised his chi and deeper chi. That was one thing that I did different. What did I miss? Well, at the time, I didn't know. But one great thing that happened in Germany was we met Dr. Hammer. Dr. Hammer, his son was shot and killed accidentally at the age of 18. 6 months after his death, Dr. Hammer felt he had gotten testicular cancer, I think. He felt it was connected to his son's death. And so he got a job in a cancer clinic and worked on 30,000 people. And found out that what actually happens with cancer is connected to what he calls a Durkheim, or a biological shock. This affects the brain. The brain acts like a circuit breaker. If there's an overampage on a certain stress, that part of the brain starts sending wrong signals to the body part. The body part is connected to an emotional issue. This was the piece I was missing. Dr. Hammer did something unbelievable and incredible. He postulated that there was a biological explanation for illness. He figured out the physiology of disease. Now, I'm not saying he's perfect, and I agree with him 100%, but this piece is a core piece to understanding. And a lot of people have alluded to it today, but it's understanding the relationship between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. If you want to expand that 2 to 5%, you want to start to build a relationship with the other 95%. And people have talked about that, getting into intuition, building their natural instincts. If you can get your natural instincts happening, that gets your immune system happening. You start doing self-care, that helps your immune system kick in. If you understand this brain piece, that there is a brain piece of this. I'm not saying don't try to go after the cancer and don't do the detox and don't. I'm saying that's all necessary. It's all a part of it. But you need to also raise the vibratory rate, and you need to get the person engaged in switching on their immune system. Here's something else that's coming from the 2% that's always shocking to me. Our scientists say that our DNA is 10% protein building and then 90% junk. That's coming from the 2%. Russian scientists have decided that that didn't make any sense. So let's look at the 90%. And here's what they found, and here's a little pearl. What they found was that 90% is storage. The amazing thing about that is that storage is malleable. That, like the brain, it has plasticity. So what does that mean? That means that you can control your own DNA and messaging. Now we know we can sort of do that with food. We know that we can do that with cleansing and detoxing. But they're also saying that we can do it with words. That what affects DNA is words. If you want to check that out, Glenn Ryan, who's a friend of mine, a biologist, has done a lot of work on this. So indulge me a little bit, since this is an evidence-based conference, and please close your eyes. Now close your inner eyelids. Now close a third set of eyelids. Notice that you have a body that has weight. And a chair beneath you that seems solid. And then there's air around you which doesn't seem solid at all. And you have a heart. So go inside your heart. Go inside. And go inside your stomach. It's different, feels different there than the heart. And stay inside, and I'm just going to say some words. Rape, puke, sickness, loss, flu, accident, bloody, torture, puppies, flowers, vacation, bonus money, friendship, I love you, goodness, ecstasy, happiness, okay, please open your eyes. What did I do? I just said words, right? Those were just words. But I imagine the first set of words felt a little bit different than the second set of words, right? So maybe words are a little bit powerful. Here's something else, I hope a pearl of wisdom. Anybody have a constant thought thing going on all the time? The minute you get up in the morning to the minute you fall asleep, like this and judging everything you see. Anybody have that going on? Okay. So, where does all that thought come from? It comes from somewhere. Can you imagine how much energy that is? 18 hours a day, 19, 20. Can you imagine how much energy is that? Now let's say that's just below our conscious awareness-ish, right? We're not aware of all, we're not watching it all the time. But if you were to watch it, if you've ever watched it, I bet you would find that 10 to 20%, maybe more, depending on who you are, you've got some money fear. Maybe another 10 to 20%, you never quite got over that person who left you, broke your heart. 10 to 20% maybe is about your childhood that wasn't the most wonderful thing. Another 10 to 20%. Anyone have fear of the future? Now let's say 60 to 70% of this is not so positive. Do you think your cells are not listening? You're creating DNA. We are creating messages. We are creating storage in our DNA with that thing, that 95% that we are not paying attention to. What's the good news? Start listening. Start bringing in your awareness. Why is it that of the thousands of things that are out there, this works for that person, this works for that person, this doesn't work, this doesn't? Why is that? I think there's two things why that is. One is there's a biological, what Hammer calls a biological conflict going on. If you can resolve that biological conflict, the brain will turn back on. And the second thing is, what really heals is awareness. That's why it's so important to do what everyone on the panel who's lived, to do what they have done. They listened to their own messages. If they couldn't follow their heart, they searched to find it. Because intrinsic in all of us is the ability to heal. It's what the body wants to do. But we have all of this, from the outside, from the inside, and then all this from the outside. Can you imagine? So we go to the doctors, from the old paradigm, the 2%, and here's what they do now. Well, we got your tests back, Mr. Smith. You have cancer. You have a year to live. Okay, now. Okay, what does that do, okay? Let's say in the new paradigm, the doctor uses word medicine and says to you, well, we got your test back, Mr. Smith. It's dire. If you don't change your lifestyle, you have about a year to live. It's a little bit different message, isn't it? The old paradigm creates shock, biological shock, which according to Dr. Hammer is what creates some metastasis. A new paradigm urges the person to take control of their health and to start showing up and to start listening and to start making changes. There's a quote that I want to repeat, and unfortunately I read it and I don't know who the author is, so if anyone ever sees this and I'm quoting you, please let me know. I think it was someone who had cured themselves, and they said, cancer is an opportunity to introduce an awareness of a more complete paradigm of our physical reality. When a client comes to see me, the first thing I do is I listen to their story, and then I look them in the eye, and I say, you want to live? And in most cases, they look at me like I have 9 heads, like, I'm paying you, I just spent all this money on all these doctors, and yeah, I want to live. And then I introduce them to the 95%. And I say, when you look out on the ocean, you see boats, and you say, oh, the ocean is calm today. Well, that's the 2 to 5% talking. And because of my skill set and the studies that I've done, I stop talking to the personality and I start talking to the brain. And then I trick my people and I say, don't think about this. Just fill in the blank. But I'd rather die than blank. And every single time, they immediately say, yes, I'd rather die than have another argument with my wife. Yes, I'd rather die than be emasculated one more time. I had a woman, she was in her late 20s, and I also ask people, I try to decipher the biological shock. There's a lot of work out there about Dr. Hammer's work. It's all out there for free. And there are books written about it, so you can understand a little bit more about what the 95% and what's going on down there. And so I help people find that biological conflict. And this woman didn't have much of a biological conflict. She was happy in her relationship, she was happy in her family. She didn't really have, she was one of the few people that didn't have what was called a biological shock. So I kept probing and kind of doing my thing, and then I asked her that question, and she said, "Oh, I know the answer to that." She had been working on environmental issues for most of her 20s. She said, "I'd rather die than see any more pollution." I feel like I could be more helpful as a spirit. Well, maybe that's why you have cancer. I don't know. And I'd watch, this is another pearl. If you don't know what TED Talks are, they're like the top thinkers of the country. And I heard this, I had seen this, I do a lot of research, but it helps to hear it from someone doing a TED Talk. And they said after 50 some odd years and close to $1 trillion, what the results of the war on cancer is that instead of 1 in 40 people being diagnosed, it's 1 in 3. And there's a 2% decrease in mortality. So, okay, from the 2%, what should we do? Give them more money. Line up. But maybe from the 5%, start to think, okay, well, it doesn't seem like anything is really working really well other than patient advocacy, really, but other than the person themselves coming to the place where they have something, they feel like they have something to live for, they have offering, they have path, and help build the intuition and a relationship between the 95% and the 5%. We have a vast storehouse inside of us that we're just stuck in this paradigm. See, I left the paradigm at a very young age. And I can tell you, from the skill set that I, for some reason, have, there's a lot more going on than what you can see. A lot more. 95% more. And that you have the capacity to tap into. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. But it's there. What else? I like what Jason said about inappropriate prescription. I thought that was great. Because if you're not in touch with that innate source, killer instinct, self-preservation, then you're going to be getting a lot of crap information and that you can't decipher. But if you're, like Janine she figured it out. If you're inside yourself and you're listening to your intuition and you're of service and finding your path, you can build up your resources and decipher better what's appropriate prescription. It should come from you. I have on my website Of course, it's field of information. There's I forget this kid's name, Barnett. And I think he was considered as a young kid to have autism. So they kind of shoveled him off in the school system, and into the whatever, special ed classes. And he said they didn't really do much there. And then for some reason, when he was 7 or 8, he just decided to study math. And he got past college level math in 2 weeks. And now, at the age of 10, is a professor at MIT or something, I don't know. And so, it's a great little video. And he says, don't listen to everybody else. Listen to yourself. If you can't find your own voice, look for it. It's what we see. Really, it's 2 to 5% of reality. And we're all looking through these maps of perception that are mostly illusion. So this is another thing that I tell my clients. If you saw a fan and it was going at top speed, it was the first time you saw a fan, you would think it's absolutely solid, right? But when it stops, you see it's actually solid, there's space, it's solid, there's space. Well, the father of science told us something, you may have heard this, E equals mc squared. Energy equals matter. I didn't make that up. So if half of the time it's solid and half of the time it's not really there, maybe half of the time we're looking at what we made up the other half. I can tell you so many stories of people who use their intuition when they listened to the outside world. And their story was really different. Okay, I'll give you one story. I can't help it, because I love this story. I was at a friend's birthday party, and she said, I don't want any gifts. Somebody just bring something you made. It could be cookies, or a poem, or a piece of artwork to share. And this one man, who was in his 40s, he had come to Berkeley from Russia 20 years earlier, and it took him a couple of years to get enough money to have his father come and visit. He got enough money together, his father came and visited, his father got really ill when he came here. They rushed him to the hospital. Doctors said, oh my God, your father's got cancer. We have to operate tomorrow. And they operated on him and found that he had cancer all through his body. And the doctors went to the son and they said, we're really sorry, he's cancer all throughout his body. And your father has a week, maybe 2 to live. The father didn't speak a word of English, so he asked his son, who he trusted implicitly. He also trusted the American doctors. And, sorry. And the son said to him, Dad, they cut it all out. You're going to be fine. And 20 years later, he was. If you look for those kind of stories, they're out there. And I think I'll end there. See if anybody has any questions. Thank you. Fieldofinformation.com. Fieldofinformation.com.
Thank you for your talk. I really appreciated it. Could you specify Dr. Hammer, where he
Yeah, there's been 27 threats on his life, and he's been put in jail. So he's on the run, but you can find a lot of his information at germanmedicine.ca, I think it is, or email. germannewmedicine.ca, I think.
German New Medicine?
Yeah. It's Dr. Sabah
Yeah, Dr. Sabah, and there's somebody here who's in Montreal.
Joubert.
Sabah.
Yeah.
There's actually somebody in Marin, and if anybody's interested, I have her email address, and she brings the guy from Canada.
Yeah, that's.
Ardella.
Yeah.
But she doesn't work with people.
No,
No.
Yeah.
but he's coming soon.
And he is coming soon. Yeah. If you want that information, email me.
That's good. Yeah, thanks, Madeline. We go back a long way. You probably don't remember me, but
I do.
I especially wanted to thank you for that piece about listening to your inner voice, because that was key to my whole healing process. Just, getting in touch with that voice, and that's the last word. That's where we have all our knowledge. If you'll forgive me, I just wanted to comment on one of the earlier speakers that I didn't have a chance to say anything about. The comment was made that Anne's favorite herbalist said that herbs don't work with chemotherapy. I wasn't there for that conversation. I don't know what was said and what she heard, but he would never say that, and I just double-checked it with him. He's my herbalist, and I guess I credit myself for saving my life, but he gave me incredible support. He's here doing consultations for $50 and donating the money to the organization. But anybody who ever says this doesn't work with this, I wouldn't go to that person. But what he does say is that if you've had chemo and radiation, then it's a little harder for the herbs to work. But he would never say that the herbs don't work. I just
Okay.
felt like I needed to clarify.
Yeah, good.
Dr. George Wong. He's based in New York. He does come here from time to time, where people can go to New York and see him for one session, and then he can prescribe herbs for them. Oh, he has a website too. What is it? George Wong, right? Or Dr. George Wong? GeorgeYCWong.com. And he works with medical doctors. He does medical research. He analyzes medical research. He presents in San Antonio. He's pretty incredible.
This is more of a comment than a question, but I appreciate your emphasis on not looking towards the experts, the professionals, and listening to our own voice. I did feel that you're pointing out that we only use 2% of our potential was accurate. I did feel that I wanted to know what techniques, how we can access the 95%. And I know that meditation purports to, and other science and studies has attributed you tapping into that potential through meditation. So I would just have wanted to hear more about that rather than the emphasis on how we're not using that potential.
Thanks for asking. It's not really well out there, but it's a system I'm developing. I call it 5D wellness, or fifth dimensional wellness, because part of the paradigm is that we only see in the third dimension. We think we live in the third dimension. It's not true. We think we're one person. It's not true. You ever want to eat something, but then your mind tells you shouldn't, and then some other part of you says, go ahead. We're multi-dimensional beings, and we just haven't studied ourselves. And so I developed a system called fifth dimensional wellness, which kind of tracks down exactly some of what I've been talking about, and then how to get to those places. I'm beta testing it, so if anyone wants to help me, go to my website and sign up. because I'm gonna put that information out, and I've been doing it my whole life. I have only been a healer my whole life. I've only done this work, so I have a unique perspective about the 95%, and hopefully, the system will be helpful to people. So yeah, please go to my website, and if you want to help me beta test it, sign up. Thank you, Anne.